newspapers who reported on the pandemic because at the time they didn't have a lot of data resources to record numbers or to create charts. So more of that stuff has happened today. So the two newspapers that we gathered some of our research from were the Arkansas Gazette in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the Commercial Appear in Memphis, Tennessee.
So the Arkansas Gazette, they were one of the main distributors of information. So they were reporting that merchants in Little Rock were also reporting that their businesses were declining by 40 to 70%. And one of the biggest groups of shops and that was closing were the grocery stores. They were losing a lot of their business. One department store even said that usually they make $15,000 a day, whereas now they aren't even making half of that number. And they're also reporting that there's been an increase in the demand for beds, mattresses, and springs. And on average, the businesses in Little Rock are losing $10,000 per day, which is obviously very extreme. And this is due to the quarantine because people weren't able to leave their house and obviously weren't able to shop. So the only business in Little Rock that was actually experiencing an increase in activity was drugstores.
So in terms of how doctors and nurses were continuing on with their jobs, a lot of them reported that they were too busy with trying to find a cure and combating the disease to even report the number of patients. This we found was kind of similar to coronavirus because a lot of the doctors are being overworked because they're really the only ones who are allowed to be working outside of their homes right now. Additionally, the pandemic had a negative effect on doctors because of that, but industrial plants weren't doing well since there was a 50% decrease in production. Many people and companies were already short numbers due to the draft in World War I. However, this increased because a lot of people didn't want to work because of the quarantine and the spread of the sickness. Mines were on the verge of closing, and people working in the transportation department and the telephone company stopped going to work due to the quarantine. Additionally, an example where the spread of disease was huge was in Coalfield, Tennessee, which is a really smaller part of Tennessee with only a population of 500, and only 2% of this population was healthy. The rest was ill.
So the mortalities of the pandemic had a very large impact on manufacturing wage rates. So there was a decrease in the supply of manufacturing workers, which refused labor supply and increased the product of labor. So this increased wages, and states with higher mortality rates actually increased. So they got a higher capita per person, which you can see in the spike.
The shortage of labor caused an increase in wages, but this benefit didn't outweigh the costs and loss of life and economic activity. People were trapped in their homes due to the quarantine. It's similar to what we have now. Everyone was experiencing something because the pandemic was affecting everyone. Families were hurting because employees were laid off. Families with no contact to the flu were experiencing hardships. Schools, public events, large gatherings, they were all canceled, similar to how we have it now.
So in comparison to COVID-19, in both cases, the large cities, which are like economic centers, are starting to shut down. Many businesses are closing and going out of business or losing revenue very quickly. And there's a lot of labor shortages. So there's millions of people that are currently out of work, which we also saw with the Spanish flu pandemic.